Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Seema Nazir and welcome back to Knowledge Realm with lecture 3 of Pakistan Affairs course. Today we're going to study a very interesting era of subcontinent's history. We'll be studying Mughal rule in subcontinent. Mughal dynasty was actually the dynasty that ruled the subcontinent for the longest period of time. Their rule started in 1526 and ended in 1857. So we're going to study this entire time period and I'll try to make it simple, easy and interesting for all of you so that you can remember it without much effort. So let's get started. So Mughal dynasty started in the subcontinent with the rule of Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur. Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur is therefore called the founder of Mughal Empire. He came from Central Asia, from an area that is today known as Uzbekistan, and he was a great warrior. And he was very proud of his lineage because his father's side was from Amir Temur and his mother's side was from Chinggis Khan. So this is the reason that the qualities of a great warrior were inherent in him, and he was very proud of this fact. We have studied it in the previous lecture that before Mughal Empire, it was Lodi dynasty that was ruling in subcontinent. So the last ruler of Lodi dynasty, that is Ibrahim Lodi, was defeated by Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur in the first battle of Panipat in 1526. After defeating Ibrahim Lodi and overthrowing his empire, Zahiruddin Babur set the foundation of Mughal Empire, of such a magnificent empire that ruled for almost more than 350 years in subcontinent. But how did that happen? How Zahiruddin Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi? Studies show that Babur had only 15,000 soldiers in his army when he was fighting with Ibrahim Lodi. And Ibrahim Lodi outnumbered Zahiruddin Babur's army significantly. He had more than 100,000 men in his army. Still, Ibrahim defeated and Babur won the battle. How did that happen? Babur actually used field artillery in the war that made him win the war. He was the first person to use guns and cannons in subcontinent. So the soldiers of Ibrahim Lodi's army didn't even know that what these things were and what was happening to them. They panicked and they could not fight. They could not retaliate and defend themselves. So they panicked and they lost the war. So this is how Babur won the war against Ibrahim Lodi despite having a much smaller army. Then Zahiruddin Babur set the foundation of a magnificent empire in subcontinent. He was a great warrior and administrator also, but after establishing the Mughal Empire, he died. In 1530, he died and he was succeeded by his eldest son Humayun. So this is how the great Mughal Empire was born and was established by the great Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur. So after the death of Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur, Humayun, his eldest son, was ascended to throne. Humayun ruled from 1530 to 1540, and then a break came in Mughal Empire and the empire was resumed in 1555 then, and in 1556 Humayun died. So Humayun was ascended to throne when he was young, inexperienced. He did not know what to do. He did not know how to run the empire and how to expand his rule. I mean, he inherited a freshly born and infant empire from his father with a host of troubles. There were Afghans, there were Rajputs, there were Hindus, and the worst of all, his own 3 brothers. This is something that we have studied several times, that in monarchy, in reality, the blood relations are not loyal to the king or to anybody. These relations are just behind the power and the throne, and they just want the power. And and the authority, the throne. So, like all other people, his brothers were also disloyal to Humayun, and they wanted to overthrow him. They wanted the throne, and they did so. They overthrew him. So this was the unfortunate event in the life of Humayun. He was overthrown by his own brothers, and then he flew to Persia. Then a very interesting event took place in subcontinent. Sher Shah Suri from Afghanistan invaded at Chausa in 1539 and at Kannauj in 1540, and he set his own rule in the subcontinent. He set his rule, and Mughal Dynasty was stopped in subcontinent, but temporarily only. I mean, Sher Shah Suri didn't know that Mughal Dynasty would revive, but it revived. Now let's study the rule of Sher Shah Suri in subcontinent, how he ruled in subcontinent. So his rule started in 1540 and ended in 1555. Studies show that Sher Shah Suri's ancestors were from Afghanistan, but he was born in India. In 1540, Suri defeated Humayun, son of Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur, and set his own rule in India. It is believed that he ruled very sagaciously. He was a good administrator, and he followed the steps of Alauddin Khilji. He constructed GT Road, he started a proper system of revenue collection, and he did many things for the welfare of his people and for strengthening his own rule in subcontinent. He started branding of horses so that no one could steal the horses of the ruler, of the army, of the government. He banned social gatherings so that there is no mutiny, there are no dissidents, and he did many reforms for the strengthening of his empire. He ruled till 1545, then he got killed in a gunpowder explosion. But his successors were incompetent and lethargic. They were not good, they were not able to keep the empire consolidated. So the empire fragmented, and Humayun came back and resumed Mughal Empire. So this is how Sher Shah Suri's dynasty started and then ended in 1555. So in 1555, the revival of Mughal rule took place, and Humayun defeated Mubriz Khan, the last ruler of Sher Shah Suri's dynasty, and took the throne back. Thereafter, Humayun worked for arts and literature. I mean, this is something that Mughal rulers are famous for, that is arts and literature. So Humayun made a library named Deen Pana, and the library became the reason of his death. In 1556, Humayun fell from that library and he died. So this is how Humayun's rule ended in subcontinent in Mughal Empire. Now we would study the era of Akbar, who ruled from 1556 to 1605, and before starting this, I'd like to mention one thing here, that Akbar was not like his ancestors. He was quite different. So his rule was also quite different, and his rule was very interesting. So we would study that in a little bit detail. So Akbar was ascended to throne after the death of his father Humayun. We have studied it in the previous lectures that at that time, rulers and warriors used to expand their rule by the help of sword, by the help of attacking nearby lands and waging war, by conquering the lands. This was the general strategy that warriors at the time used to adopt whenever there was a need of expanding the rule. But Akbar was not like their ancestors. He was quite different, and he did not adopt this kind of a strategy. He did not adopt this policy. He did not resort to war or fighting or bloodshed to expand his rule and to consolidate his empire. Rather, he adopted a very different reconciliatory policy. This is a very unique thing of Akbar's rule, a very unique characteristic of his rule that we could not find in the rule of other warriors or other rulers of Mughal Empire. He adopted a reconciliatory policy. What he did, he tried to unite all the religions of India to strengthen his rule, to strengthen his hold on India. He did not kill anybody. He did not raise the sword. He did not wage war. But he adopted this reconciliatory policy. He tried to unite all the people so that there is no disintegration and hostilities and mutiny and no dissidents to challenge his rule. He married with Hindu women and he tried to amalgamate all the religions found in India. I mean, these were his reforms that he did in India. So here we are not going to talk about that if his policy was good or not. We're not going to talk about it. We're just studying what he did. So he tried to amalgamate all the religions found in India to unite people. This was his very unique strategy. He took severe measures to accomplish this task, to strengthen his rule, but it did not turn out to be good for Muslims. He took severe measures, and in this effort he ended up distorting the real image of Islam, and he did great damage to Muslims of subcontinent. He gave Ain-e-Akbari, that was his constitution. In 1579 he gave an infallibility decree. The infallibility decree states that Sultan is always correct, which means that Akbar is always correct. Whatever law Akbar gave, whatever rule Akbar made, it would always be right. The religion, the law of Allah did not matter anymore there in subcontinent, and the jurists stopped referring to Quran and Hadith, and it was the rule of Akbar only in subcontinent. So this is what infallibility decree did in subcontinent. So these all were the measures of Akbar to consolidate his empire, to strengthen his empire. Then he fought second battle of Panipat with a Hindu Raja in 1556. Keep this in mind for MCQ's portion. And let's see what do we have further on Akbar's era. So we have studied in the previous slide that Akbar adopted a reconciliatory policy towards the non-Muslims of India to unite all the people of India, to consolidate, to strengthen his rule, and to prevent any rebellion in his empire. To do so, he took many severe measures, and the most severe measure was the introduction of Deen-e-Ilahi of Akbar in 1581. Here we would study the Deen-e-Ilahi of Akbar. So what was this Deen-e-Ilahi? Sadly, this is not something that appease a Muslim. In fact, it was very dissatisfying and very damaging for Muslims. Deen-e-Ilahi was actually a new religion introduced by Akbar in India. It was the amalgamation of all the religions of India. Buddhism, Sikh, Hinduism, worship of idols, and Islam, and all the religions were amalgamated to a single religion called Deen-e-Ilahi by Akbar. Why he did so? He did so to win the hearts of the people, to unite all the people, and to give people an impression that we are all one and we are united, so that the rebellion could be prevented. And there was no mutiny, and there was no dissidence, and nothing that could threaten the rule of Akbar. Unfortunately, people started embracing his religion. But it was threatening for Muslims. It distorted the image of Islam. Islam was also amalgamated with these religions, and it lost its shape. So this was an effort of Akbar to unite all the people, but it distorted Islam. Akbar forgot that he was a Muslim ruler and he was ruling a Muslim empire. All he knew, all he remembered was that he was there to strengthen his rule in India. And in this effort, he distorted Islam very significantly. Another problem at the time was the concept of Wahdatul Wujud. Wahdatul Wujud was actually a concept of Sufism that distracted the people, the Muslims of subcontinent at that time. And Wahdatul Wujud actually is a concept that means that the creator means Allah and the creature means insan. Both these things are similar and equal. I mean, this is something that a Muslim would never believe, but people at that time were believing, and they fell to this concept, and Islam faced threat at the time in the era of Akbar. But then a person named Sheikh Ahmad Sirhind came to forefront and started his reform movement to save Islam, to save Muslims at that time. Muslims were in dissipation during the rule of Akbar. They started abandoning their true religion and they embraced the false religion introduced by Akbar, which was Deen-e-Ilahi. So Sheikh Ahmad of Sirhind started his reform movement, and he started his efforts and he brought Muslims back to correct path. It was his efforts that Muslim rule was saved in subcontinent, and Muslim rulers and the locals were steered back to the right path. So the reform movement of Sheikh Ahmad Sirhind, I have discussed about it very little here, but don't worry, all the CSS aspirants, I've prepared an entire separate lecture for reform movements, and there we would study these reform movements in much detail. For this particular lecture, I think the information that I've given here is enough. So let's move forward. So after Akbar, Jahangir took the responsibility of ruling the Mughal Empire. In 1605, Akbar died and Jahangir was ascended to throne. Jahangir's real name was Mirza Nuruddin Muhammad Salim, and his title was Jahangir, which means conqueror of the world. Jahangir was actually a good ruler. He expanded the empire and added Kishtwar and Kangra to Mughal Empire. He did not do any modifications to Islam. In fact, he reversed all the modifications done by his father to Islam. He implemented Islamic rules and eliminated Deen-e-Ilahi promulgated by Akbar. A very important feature of era of Jahangir is that it was during his era that English came to subcontinent. He gave them many favors and he welcomed them warmly. I mean, this is the tradition of this area, that people here in subcontinent are very nice to their guests especially, and whoever come to their area, they welcome them very warmly. And like all other Mughal emperors, Jahangir was also fond of art and architecture. So this was the era of Jahangir, and his rule ended in 1628. So the first sight on Taj Mahal evokes the memory of a great Mughal ruler named Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan was the son of Jahangir, and Shah Jahan succeeded Jahangir. His real name was Khurram and his title was Shah Jahan, which means Emperor of the World. Studies show that Mughal Empire was at its zenith during the rule of Shah Jahan. It covered almost all of the India at the time. Shah Jahan's rule started in 1628 and ended in 1658. Like his ancestors, Shah Jahan was also fond of art and architecture. Mughal architecture reached its extreme exuberance during his reign. He built marble edifices at Agra such as Diwan-e-Am, Diwan-e-Khas, Sheesh Mahal, Moti Masjid, and the most mesmerizing Taj Mahal. He was fond of art and architecture. But in 1658 he was imprisoned by his own son Aurangzeb and died in 1666. It is believed that Shah Jahan was actually not a good administrator. In fact, he was only interested in architecture and he squandered the treasury of his ancestors. He was busy in building all these marble edifices, and English, on the other hand, were busy in creeping into the politics of India. So it damaged and it weakened the empire. So we definitely cannot call Shah Jahan a good ruler. He was not a good ruler, not a good warrior, but his era damaged the empire significantly. He was succeeded by his son Aurangzeb, and now let's study how Aurangzeb ruled India. So in 1658 starts the era of Aurangzeb Alamgir. He imprisoned his father Shah Jahan and defeated his brothers and took the throne and set his rule in subcontinent. Till now we have understood this, that whenever there was 2 to 3 sons of a king, of a monarch, the war of succession started. Because there was a lust of power and a lust of throne, so brothers started fighting against each other, and the lust of throne pit brothers against brothers, and in this fight only one was supposed to win and the others were destined to be killed. So Aurangzeb defeated his brothers and he took the throne in 1658. He constructed Badshahi Mosque in 1671, and Aurangzeb was the ruler who expanded the Mughal Empire to its maximum border. Aurangzeb was a cruel leader. Why? Because he imprisoned his father? No. Or he defeated and killed his brothers? No. This was the general practice of the time. This was the order of the time, that brothers would kill brother, people would kill their masters, their father, their uncle. Alauddin Khilji killed his uncle Jalaluddin Khilji. Razia Sultana was killed by his brother. So this was not something new. This was not the act of Aurangzeb that branded him with the name cruel. No. But his attitude, his policies towards non-Muslims of his empire made people call him cruel. He was not kind towards non-Muslims of his empire. He was not merciful towards non-Muslims of his empire. So this is the reason he was called cruel. He was a staunch Muslim and he adopted anti-Muslim policies. And it agitated the non-Muslims of that time. He banned their festivals. He imposed a large jizya on non-Muslims, and he adopted such policies that caused disunity among people. This is something that is not advised by our religion Islam. Islam advised a Muslim ruler to be merciful towards the minority of his empire. But Aurangzeb did not implement any Islamic teachings in matter of non-Muslims, and he adopted anti-non-Muslim measures. So his policies caused disintegration among people and agitated non-Muslims. It infuriated non-Muslims. So era of Aurangzeb was the time when internal disintegration started in Mughal Empire and it weakened Mughal Empire. Aurangzeb actually became the reason of disintegration of Mughal Empire. And it would lead to 1857 when the empire perished completely. So this was the era of Aurangzeb that ended in 1707 with his death, and after him the leaders who succeeded him were incompetent, lethargic, and were in dissipation. So Mughal Empire weakened and dismantled in 1857. Now here is the most comprehensive, interesting and the nice slide of this lecture. That is timeline of Mughal Dynasty in India 1526 to 1707. This timeline explains almost everything about the most important rulers of Mughal Dynasty. These timelines are actually very interesting, presentable, and a very good tool to memorize such kind of events, dates, era of different rulers, and keep everything in mind in a good sequence. So I would advise all the CSS aspirants to practice this tool and make these timelines and figures in exam to impress the examiner and score good. So let's recall everything that we studied today. So first of all, it was Zahiruddin Babur who defeated Ibrahim Lodhi, the last ruler of Lodhi dynasty, in the first battle of Panipat and set the foundation of Mughal dynasty, the founder of Mughal dynasty. He started his rule in 1526 and in 1530 he died. Humayun was the eldest son of Zahiruddin Babur, who succeeded Zahiruddin Babur, and he consolidated the empire. But in 1540 he was overthrown by a leader named Sher Shah Suri. Sher Shah Suri started his dynasty in subcontinent in 1540 by defeating Humayun. Sher Shah Suri was not a person who was interested in expanding the rule and conquering more and more land. No, he was a good administrator. He did many things for public welfare. He was interested in public service and doing work for his people. So he did many good things. He constructed GT Road. He branded the horses of the empire so that no one could steal the horses. He banned social gatherings so that there was no rebellion. He did many things for the welfare of people. So his rule continued from 1540 to 1555. Then in 1555 there took place the revival of Mughal dynasty. Humayun came back. He defeated the last ruler of Sher Shah Suri's dynasty, Mubriz Khan, and he took the throne back. He established the Mughal dynasty once again in subcontinent. But in 1556 he died. He fell from the library Deen Pana and he died. Then in 1556 Akbar, the son of Humayun, took the throne. Akbar's era is very interesting. He took some measures to unite the people of India. He ended up distorting image of Islam. He introduced Deen-e-Ilahi. He gave infallibility decree in 1581, as I can remember, and he gave Aine-Akbari. So these were his efforts to unite the people and prevent the rebellion in India and strengthen his rule, but he ended up distorting image of Islam. He ruled from 1556 and his rule ended in 1605. And another very interesting episode that happened in the era of Akbar was the reform movement of Sheikh Ahmad Sirhind. Then the era of Jahangir started. In 1605, Jahangir succeeded his father Akbar and he ruled from 1605 to 1628. The most interesting and important thing of Jahangir's era was that in his era, the arrival of English started. English came to subcontinent and started trade there. Another very important thing about Jahangir's era was that Jahangir discontinued all the un-Islamic practices started by Akbar. He eliminated everything that threatened Islam, that is, Deen-e-Ilahi of Akbar, Ain-e-Akbari, and the infallibility decree. He eliminated everything. So this was the era of Jahangir. Then Jahangir was succeeded by his architecture lover son Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan was the person fond of art and architecture. He built many marble edifices, Diwan-e-Am, Diwan-e-Khas, and the most mesmerizing Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal is known for Shah Jahan's love for his wife, and people visit that place today. Taj Mahal, a very mesmerizing place. Shah Jahan ruled from 1628 to 1658, but he didn't die in 1658. In fact, he was imprisoned by his son named Aurangzeb, who succeeded Shah Jahan. In 1658, Aurangzeb, a very staunch Muslim ruler, imprisoned Shah Jahan, his father, and defeated and killed his brother so he could take the throne. Aurangzeb ruled from 1658 to 1707. Aurangzeb was the person who adopted many anti-non-Muslim measures and agitated non-Muslim. He was cruel and he was merciless towards non-Muslims. So this was the thing that started internal disintegration of Mughal Empire. So this was the entire story that we learned today. This was the entire lecture that we studied today. This was the summary of whatever we studied today, and I believe it is very interesting and it makes memorization very easy. So practice such kind of tools, practice these timelines and the figures. This is very interesting and it makes the exam paper very presentable and easy to understand. So today we have studied the Mughal Dynasty, and in the next lecture we would study reform movements and the decline of Muslim rule in India. That would be very interesting. So till then, best of luck for your exam. Study hard, work hard, and Allah Hafiz.